All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have two really interesting folks with me here. Uh, I have Aditya from Appwrite and Pranav from Chatwoot. So today
Hey,
we're going to spend. Hey. So today we're going to spend some time learning more about Appwrite, Chatwoot, and also talk about Hacktoberfest, the contributions that we've seen, and the future of our projects. So that's the idea here. So first, a quick round of introductions. I'm Abhishek. I'm one of the co-founders of Appsmith. Appsmith is an open source low code project that helps you build internal applications very quickly. You can use that to connect to any API, any data source, and build UI by drag and drop. Invite anybody to use it, and get started with your internal applications. Do check out Appsmith. And I'm going to hand it off to Aditya, and let's hear about Appwrite.
Sure. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining in for this stream. I am Aditya. I'm currently the DevRel engineer here at Appwrite. So as far as my role here goes, I'm just here to ensure that you all have a fun time working with, playing around with Appwrite. You all enjoy spending time here with our community. So that's my priority. I'm here to just have fun with all of you and ensure you have a great time. And apart from that, as far as my own work goes, I've been a .NET buff for a while. It's fun to work with. So yeah, that's definitely there. Uh, but I'm really just exploring the DevRel space, exploring backend dev, playing around with some cloud tech, and really just having a lot of fun around here in communities.
Nice. Thank you, Aditya. Uh, Pranav, tell us about Chatwoot and tell us about yourself.
hey everyone. First of all, thanks for having me here. It's nice to chat with you. So yeah, I mean, at Chatwood, we are building an open source customer engagement suite as an alternative to Intercom or Zendesk. So we help companies to engage their customers without sharing, sensitive data with third-party providers. So yeah, that's about us.
Thanks, Pranav. So let's talk a bit about our journey into open source. So maybe Aditya, you could talk a bit about how did you get into open source? Why are you so excited about open source community? And when did you exactly get started? And when did you know this is what you want to do?
Absolutely. So I got into open source because of Hacktoberfest. I
Wow.
started participating a couple of years back, and I remember that the first few contributions I had were a few documentation edits, few problems I saw in a few different places, grammatical ones, all of that.
Like adding a
Uh,
comma or
Correcting spelling mistakes, that sort of stuff. Um, that was really how I started. But I remember that Hacktoberfest was also around the time that I just had taken my first steps in communities around me, and I was fortunate enough to meet a few mentors who had been playing around, having fun with some of their own projects, and that's kind of when I started understanding what open source really stood for, the sort of impact it has, and how it's really just a good thing to do. It's a space for everyone, anyone, with whatever knowledge they have, with whatever technologies they enjoy working with, and you
yeah.
can just go ahead and contribute. And so that's kind of why I stuck around, helping out, maybe just trying to bring this to folks around me, whether it's through my own code, whether it's through actively trying to evangelize some initiatives I really believe in, and just trying to help out, do my little bit.
And you get a lot of street cred, right? When you're in college and people know that you've contributed to open source, everybody's like,
Absolutely.
how did you do that? How do you have so many blocks on your GitHub profile?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's definitely there.
Do you remember like what your first project was? The first project that you contributed to?
So those first documentation edits, Yeah, that was in some article for Free Code Camp, and I think it was a repository I found from Hacktoberfest's own recommendations. I think they have a recommended list of different projects where you can contribute, and I came across Free Code Camp from there. So that's where I made my first, and I know a couple of them around there also got invalidated. I got my first PR acceptance as well, and that was pretty nice.
Nice. And you were still in college, right? You were still studying when you did
Yeah,
this.
I'm still in college. I'm still in
You were
college
still
right
in
now.
college. Wow, I had no idea. Okay, that is incredible. Do you not have classes to attend? How do you
I
do so much
do.
work?
So I work here part of the time. I do my classes, of course. With final year, it's just more easy. It's just easier to juggle all of these commitments. But I'm having fun. I'm really enjoying my time at Appwrite. So that's my priority these days, along with, of course, a bit of classes.
Yeah, it seems like the new generation of developers graduating right now are so amazing. Like we have confidence from our team who's also still in college, and I can honestly tell you when we hired him, I had no idea that he was in college because he was doing all the work. I just have no idea how he manages it. So it just is like impressive and quite amazing.
It's yeah, it's really cool. I think on that front, I have to give a huge shout out to the team as well, because they appreciate and respect that fact and always give the space wherever necessary. I think there's a lot of support I get from the team in case there are any academic commitments or otherwise. So huge shout out to them for that.
What about you, Pranav? You are not in college, right?
No, I graduated long back. So yeah, I think my open source journey started somewhere in like the first I hear about open source was somewhere in my school days, where there was a movement in like I'm from Kerala, there was a movement in Kerala, to move every government like operating system to Linux, and they started it out as a first project for on education as IT at school, and then they later used it in different places, and that was the first time we heard about there is another way of building softwares, or like there is something called open source which can be used in for public good. So yeah, I mean, my first contribution was somewhere in like when I was in college. I was like exploring a lot of technologies. I found one of them have lack documentation. There was a specific feature which was not documented, so I just put it out there, and then that's still there right now, which is something which gives me happiness. So it's around like 8 or 9 years since I contributed that, and it's still there, which is actually a good thing. So yeah, and I think a lot of like for me, I think the journey to open source was more around awareness started very early. Contribution started during college days, and then being a maintainer was a recent one, but still it was a gradual process from a person who knows about open source to a person who maintains open source. So yeah.
Nice. It's really interesting you mentioned that about the Kerala government because one of the things that I think all of us have been wondering is why does Kerala have so many solid open source projects? I think the most popular open source projects from India are actually from Kerala, like NocoDB, Hopscotch, Chatwoot, of course. Yeah, these are the three that I know of, and I'm sure there are others that are emerging. And
Yeah,
that's
I
what.
think there there are pioneers which so we right now what you just mentioned is like commercial open source projects. There are like quite good of open source forums like SMC, which is like Swatantra Malayalam Computing, which has been doing a lot of good open source work for a long time. And I started lessons on open source through them, and there were like people who were actually contributing to Linux kernel while in a webinar, which was kind of amazing. So there is like a good set of people, good set of like community around open source in Kerala, and I think that's one of the reasons why we have stronger projects coming from Kerala ecosystem.
So it's like for so many of you in Kerala, you've been exposed to the fact that you can have a legitimate career contributing to open source. And of course, now you're starting like commercial open source projects, which can be an entire business on its own. So that's super
Yeah.
interesting. You
Yeah.
mentioned something like, open source is for public good. Have both of you seen examples where Appwrite or Chatwoot are being used in places, organizations that would probably never use commercial projects for whatever reasons, right? Have you seen anything interesting? Maybe you could talk a bit about those ones. Interesting customers, interesting users.
Yeah, I think one of the things which we have seen during COVID was like there was a lot of people who were moving from uh, you know from like offline to online businesses, and they were actually trying to find some tool which they could either host or like use it in a low cost. And we still remember an email from one of the stores in Philippines where they were trying to use something, but like Chatwood came to their attention. They like hosted it on a small machine, and they could actually like start business on top of that. Which like those kind of use cases are there. I mean, where people like there is obviously like commercial usage, as well as like there is a lot of people who are actually not really big customers, but like which gives you happiness that these people are using it for this reason, and you're actually like empowering them, which is good. So yeah.
Nice. What about you, Aditya, at Appwrite? Like, have you seen very interesting organizations uh, benefit from open source, from the fact that it's free, that you can self-host this?
I think, for us, considering how our growth has been from Hacktoberfest to Hacktoberfest, we ourselves have really been impacted by this thing, to be honest. To the fact that people are trying to build in public, we're definitely grateful to that front. On that point, I did recently come across an organization. It's totally slipping my name, like that slipping name, but somewhere from the EMEA region, and a large community and their platform was trying to leverage Appwrite to ensure that they could make their resources and this community accessible to developers all around. And that was definitely something really really amazing to see, because I think when we talk about platforms like one like ours, like at least we're a backend as a service. All we're trying to do is ensure that it's easier for developers to build faster and better, because development is just hard. That's what it is today. And to see that impact go across continents is fantastic. And aside from that, I think even with this Hacktoberfest, it's been very interesting to see the sort of work coming up, because a lot of newer developers, people who are trying to contribute for the very first time, are able to get their starts with Appwrite. So it's been amazing to see that.
That's really awesome. So even at Appsmith, we've had some interesting experiences. Just today, we met this German user who wanted to use Appsmith for his business. But the most interesting thing that he told us was that his kids were in school. They've been using Appsmith for building some of their internal projects and just playing around with JavaScript. And that was just like so surprising that kids in school are able to like self-host this, learn JavaScript enough to actually start building something interesting. I don't think I would have expected Appsmith to be used by like 10 or 12-year-old kids. So that was like really surprising and interesting to hear. And I guess like this is the most interesting thing about open source, right? You're not choosing your users. Your users are kind of choosing you. They're finding you from all of these different places, and they're choosing us. They're somehow finding us. We have no idea how, but they are finding us, and then they're using us. So have you seen Appwrite and Chatwood? Both of your products are going after really massive use cases. How have you been dealing with all of these issue requests and all of these different directions that both of your products can go in? Could you talk a bit about that? Like, how are you choosing what to work on, and how are you choosing what to say no to?
Definitely. If I might go ahead on that, I
Yeah.
think if I talk just in the context of Hacktoberfest, we've had about 250 pull requests this last month.
Wow.
And I think for us, we do try to ensure that we have a little roadmap of our own, of course,
Mhm.
that we try to keep in mind. For example, right now there's been quite a lot of work on a massive database refactor, which will enable developers to
Mhm.
use different databases of their preference beyond
Nice.
MariaDB that we have. Aside from
Mhm.
that, cloud functions have been
Wait,
there.
so they're going to be able to create like APIs on top of any database that they choose, not just
Well,
MariaDB.
we will have support for both SQL and NoSQL databases. There are some options that we're dedicatedly working for, but that being said, yes,
Mhm.
there can be connectors that go beyond, and
Nice.
even beyond just the inbuilt support for databases, we've seen some fun stuff happening around with our cloud functions. That's been a fun place as well. That folks have been trying to contribute, and I think we tried to define issues keeping in mind. A lot of what we hope to achieve, right? While keeping this beginner centric. So, a big part of our contributions for translations for the platform for different locations all around, because these were highly beginner centric. Someone just starting off could contribute, but they have such a huge accessibility impact. So,
Mhm.
that sort of impact is something we keep in mind, of course. But that being said, we're always open to new ideas
Mhm.
because, of course, with our team, we're a budding team, we're growing. There's always something that someone's going to see and figure out and bring up to us. And we're always open to having those discussions, um, discuss, just sharing those ideas and ensuring that, this is a platform for these developers, for this community. So it's been an interesting experience. It's been highly collaborative, but we've had a lot of fun throughout.
So do you remember a contribution? Maybe you saw it in the Hacktoberfest or maybe before that, something that was like very unexpected.
Yeah. So we've actually got a repository of different contributions, projects, tutorials, all of that sort of stuff. And I recently saw an unofficial SDK for Minecraft,
Wow.
like an Appwrite Minecraft database, and that's not something I was expecting to see, but it was definitely a very cool example of what can potentially be achieved with this platform.
Nice. That sounds super interesting. Pranav, what about you guys? How are you're obviously going after a really massive market out there. A lot of established features out there, a lot of new ideas that you can execute on, and then you have contributors coming in. So how are you dealing with all of this?
Yeah, I think so. For us, we have a roadmap which and like we have a direction where we want to get to, and that's so we take that as priority. So basically, people who are actually working, like team members who are working, would take their time to build that, and then like there is always a community aspect where people would be asking you to build some stuff which is really important for them. So in our case it's generally like somewhere 60-40 split, where we take like 60% of the work on the
Hmm.
product direction, as well as like we take 40% of the work on what community was asking you for a long time, or like if there is something which needs to be addressed in immediately, then we take those. Then in general, like if there is like something which people can contribute, we help them to contribute. Like we encourage people to actually join our Discord channel, ask questions, and then get knowledge about the product, and then start contributing. So we ensure that like even if the person is a beginner who doesn't know about Chatwood, or who doesn't really understand the tech stack, if they are interested, we try to help them to bring on board, and then probably like have a good experience. So yeah, I think like in terms of developer experience, or like in terms of how we manage the community, this is how we have been doing that. And I think a major part of our journey so far is always like the community, because like when we started back in 2019, it we didn't have like that much of a clarity on what to build, and then
Hmm.
we kept on iterating on what what needs to be done, and what community wants, and what is something which can we build business on. And there are a lot of ideas which came in from the community which helped us in the journey so far. So yeah.
Nice. And what's like the most unexpected contribution that you have seen at Chatwood?
Yeah, I think so there are certain instances where we I guess it's ours is, since it's not really like a developer tool, so the applications are not there. It's basically either you have something in the product which is not working, or which might not be working in a different, like it should have been working in a different way, but it is not. So we have seen a lot of use cases where people who are actually using the product, who knows that there is something broken, which was not aware, like team was not aware, or there was no bug which was reported. So people would actually start try out the product and then see the code, and then they would directly raise a PR. So we have seen a lot of instances like that. And we are not supporting a lot of platforms right now. So if you look at Flutter or a new mobile app development platforms, we are not supporting those. And all those are actually contributed by the community, and they are actually maintaining it right now. And I think, yeah, I mean, people take care about the product, and then they actually wanted to implement it. So they didn't, when they didn't see something, they try to implement that, which has been something which is working for us.
So one of the things that I had heard about before coming into open source as a full-time maintainer was that people can be quite demanding. But haven't your experiences been the total reverse? Like we have really nice users and contributors who actually are not demanding at all. They are so nice and gentle when they report issues, and we've never felt like somebody's trying to take advantage of us or exploit us or push us in a direction which doesn't make sense for most of the users. Have you guys had positive experiences, or have you guys faced anything negative?
I think when we talk about these experiences with our communities, and I would say, I think where we're leveraging community platforms, I think I believe you mentioned Discord. We're on Discord as well. It does come down to a sense and a culture of respect that we're trying to maintain throughout. So we try to ensure that we remain respectful, courteous, like that. We hope to see the same. Fortunately, most people reciprocate, so it's always lovely to see that happen. Every once in a while, we're going to see someone demand a little more, and I think sometimes it's all right as well. It's an expectation sometimes. Of course, those demands push certain barriers of courtesy too. And at those points, it's really just trying to communicate. That's the only way to kind of then come together and push through these problems, because at the end of the day, our communities, our contributors, our users, we're all trying to achieve the same thing, right? And that is to ensure our platforms grow.
Right.
So I think, as we try to inculcate that sense of unity and just a sense of respect, that's kind of what has worked well for us. And I'm really happy that I believe majority of a far drastic majority of my experiences have all been positive. And I think even in the live chat, one of my lovely teammates, Brandon, has been active. He's just mentioned that the community behind open source is the secret. It's a fact. Everyone wants the projects to succeed and thrive, and uh, that's definitely something that we should all remember and appreciate.
Yeah, that is true. I think it's been like people are often so grateful that the project is built so nicely, it works so well, and that's what keeps me going every single day. Like every single day, there's somebody saying, "Thank you so much for building this," and it's just like super nice. They don't need to say that. You can just go use this. But people do that all the time, and that's been like super wonderful for us. Pranav, at Chatwood, I think one of the main things that you guys are doing is like building like a really loved chat platform. Because I think some of your competitors are not so loved anymore. So Have you seen that, people moving from your competitors because they don't listen? And the fact is that Chatwood does listen and is proactive.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons people actually move, because even if you look at some of the competitors, like, we are not at par with the features, but they still move because we solve some of their problems, and we would help them really try to, like, take a call with them, try to help their find their use cases, and then help them to implement the way they want it. I think that has been one of the reasons, like, most people like the product. And in the sense, like, there is obviously like, if you're growing too much, like, if you're growing in a sense, like, if you're a big company, then there is obviously going to be like a lot of bloat happening, and we are trying to like lessen that with the community aspect, as well as with our approach to, open source. So I think yeah, I mean, one of the major things which we have seen is people actually, even though, like, if there is not one feature which they really want, they would actually wait for that to happen. Or, as I mentioned previously, like, either they would try to contribute that so that they can start using the product. And yeah, I think like, yeah, as you mentioned, like, there are a lot of live chat providers which people don't really like, but
Yeah.
they are still using it. So yeah, I mean, I really understand that fact.
Yeah, I think the one difference that I'm seeing with the way open source projects we are all running it is everything that we do is kind of in public. Our roadmap is in public, and we can't even bullshit people that hey, we are building it right now, because they know that hey, nobody's working on that PR. I haven't seen any activity on it, and that kind of also forces us to, maybe not forces us, but gets us to be honest and direct with people that hey, this is going to take us this much time, and we are not bullshitting. We are really going to work on it. We've just not started on it, and we're going to get there. So while I do know that, like, for example, like Zendesk or Intercom, they're just like really really difficult to convince them to do something for you.
Yeah.
Support is incredibly hard to get, and if stuff goes down, you really don't hear from them. And Intercom, for example, probably hasn't changed for the last 3 years, maybe like even longer. But I just don't remember it having improved or changed that much. Versus like something like Chatwood, like every few days or few weeks, just keeps changing, right? So that's
Yeah,
been awesome.
I think, like, to add to that point, it's so in recent times, like, some of our SaaS users, they would ask for a feature, so we would send them the GitHub links, and they could this like, we tell them, like, look here, you don't need to ask me, like, there is a progress which you can see over there. I think that's one of the piece which every project should understand, right? You have to build that muscle where you can you need to be transparent with people, because you're building that in public, and in within the team as well. Like, you have to really make sure that you're making most of the stuff transparent. You're making it public, so that there is no discrepancy between what you talk about in public versus, like, what you're actually doing, right? So yeah, I think one of the good examples is where, like, GitLab does this, like, amazingly well, where they have this, like, entire doc on transparency. And I think that's one of the bibles which most of the open source projects can take, right?
Yeah, yeah, they of course take it to an
Yeah,
uh, extreme level. I believe like all their meetings are live streamed on YouTube.
yeah, yeah,
Definitely, I think the CEOs meetings are all live streamed on YouTube. So that was pretty insane level of transparency, and I guess it is paying off, right? Like uh, considering the kind of power and muscle that GitHub is backed with, GitLab has still managed to make such a large dent in the market
yeah.
and succeeded so much. And I believe like transparency is probably one of the most important tenets out there that they fulfill. So let's change gears and let's talk about Hacktoberfest a little bit more. We have another 15 minutes to go. So I'd
Sure.
love to hear from you, Aditya, about some of your favorite contributions. Maybe a shout out for some of your favorite contributors to Appwrite.
Absolutely. I think Hacktoberfest has just been such an impactful period for us. Even as we look at the journey and history of Appwrite was launched as an open source project for the very first time 2 years back at Hacktoberfest.
Wow.
Last year was like, these were just really big occasions for us, because even last year that was one of those times we really escalated when it comes to um, metrics and factors. I mean, I don't like want to say metrics here, but aspects like GitHub stars, finding new contributors. It's a little after that we officially became a company, and now we're able to sponsor Oktoberfest this year. So it's just
That's
been
amazing.
such a wonderful journey for Appwrite. And I mean, we've had over 250, we've had about 250 new contributors in just
Wow.
this while. We've
You had
seen
250 new contributors this Hacktoberfest?
yeah yes, in
Wow.
this
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, like across all Appwrite repos. It's been wonderful to see that happen. And I think it'd be very difficult to pinpoint any specific contributor here, because they've all been doing absolutely wonderful work. To be honest, I think I do want to give one shout out in general to a space of contributions that we've seen, and that is, that this time beyond some of our code contributions, we've had a lovely number of tutorials, a really cool, a lot of content come up on that front. We've had a few new other kind of contributions we've tried to experiment with, to cater to people with different skill sets. Like we've had some fan art and Discord emojis, and I
Wow.
remember seeing this lovely piece of fan art very recently. It was a 3D illustration made with Blender that tried to incorporate different platforms and aspects of Appwrite, and I simply fell in love with this. It was such a beautiful render. I think I probably have the link around to share as
Yeah,
well.
you should share your screen. I would love to see that. And this was like,
Yeah,
was this an NFT or was this just a JPG? I would,
just
okay.
shared it on Twitter. They shared it on Twitter. So if I bring up my screen here for a second, um, so I believe it should be visible for us.
Yeah.
And this here was this really lovely piece of fan art. It takes into account some of the platforms you have, because we support quite a few web platforms. Along with that, Flutter is a huge platform for us. Mobile, of course, Android's been there, and we recently released our iOS, our Apple SDKs. So for Apple platforms, as well as a server side SDK. So this was such an amazing illustration made with Blender 3D. I absolutely loved this one.
That is so cool, man. I'm really hoping somebody does that for Appsmith. This will be so cool. I cannot believe somebody made this for you guys. That is insane. And so we've been following some of the Appwrite tutorials, and it's been like really amazing to see how much people care about simplifying how to use Appwrite, creating all of these tutorials to use with Flutter, especially Flutter, right? Flutter, I think, has been like a big focus for you guys. Is that
Yeah.
something you guys did, or is that just from the community?
So as far as our SDKs goes, the ones by our team, there's a really cool little thing. They're all made with an SDK generator. None of them are built by hand. So we have an SDK generator with different templates that we have, and they've been so good that we've had people try to contribute to those directly, because it seems like those might have a few kinks here and there, but they're actually not meant to build it up because those are automatically generated by our SDK generator. So they've been good enough to seem like they've been built by a person, and that's why we're able to support so many different platforms. I think we have support for about 12, 13 platforms at this point,
Wow.
and they're all built with our SDK generator here that we have. And Flutter, of course, has been definitely a big focus point for us. It's been a great platform. It's a lovely one to build with. It's cross-platform. It allows you to build for mobile devices, for your desktop, for your web, all of those. So definitely, we love Flutter.
Let's check with Pranav. Pranav, how has Hacktoberfest been for you guys? What kind of contributions have you seen, and are there any that come to your mind that you're very happy about?
Yeah, I think like Hacktoberfest has been one of the good events where we see a lot of contributions. Our first 25 contributors came through Hacktoberfest.
Nice.
So we kind of like open sourced it in August or somewhere near to that, and then came Hacktoberfest. Then like we got I guess like 25 or 30 different contributors at that time, and that was like quite random. We didn't know like who they were. They were just like contributing to the code base because we one of the things which we did was like we created the right set of issues so that people can pick up even though they are actually like very beginners to the project, which actually helped us a lot in getting some of the contributions. And one thing which I would like to say is like all the translations which are coming in from the community. That's really like something which other companies or like other type of businesses cannot achieve, where we support 30 different languages right now, and it is growing more. And it helps us in the sense where like we wanted to democratize support softwares, and to achieve that you need like massive support from like different community, different cultures, right?
Yeah.
That has been like one of the I think like that's something which we get from our community. And all of these, except like we started with English only, but we had that framework on contributing to the translation and like how to get it approved and stuff like that. And that actually like all of the other languages which we have right now is completely community contributed, and it's
Wow.
they are actually maintaining it. And I can see some of the money.
I have a question here. Would that make like Chatwoot the most translated customer support platform? Is there anything
Sorry.
that comes close?
No, I think like there is nothing which is anywhere near to that, because I guess like I can some of the languages, to be honest, like
Yeah,
no offense,
that's
I
really
I've not heard about it.
tough.
So yeah, I think that's again so people actually care about the product, because when you can see some of the conversations in our GitHub forums where people are coming in as like there was one instance where in German, I guess, we translated somebody translated mine into actual mine, coal mine kind of thing, instead of like my conversations. So there
Right.
was like a funny conversation between like all the people that like this is not the right word for that and stuff like that. So people actually care about those kind of things, and I think that has been driving us to build this more, where yeah, it gives you accessible support software, and like you can actually use it in your language, which is something which no other provider can actually provide at the scale which we provide.
Yeah, yeah, that really is incredible because it just means that you're going to be like enabling this for people who would have probably never used a live chat product
Yeah,
because it just doesn't work in their language.
yeah,
So, and I can especially imagine that. I don't know if you have a lot of Indian languages, but I can imagine like Indian languages especially benefiting from that because most software uh, is written outside of India and is mostly in English or maybe some of these Western languages, which obviously have bigger economies. So nobody might ever create one for Odia, for example. I'm an Odia.
yeah.
So that really is incredible to hear.
Yeah, I think that's part of that as well, where we have seen people who wanted to use intercom, but or like or other tools, but their agents or like people who are working on the support doesn't know English, and there is no really other way to like use that software. So some people use us for that, because like and we can see that on our like on our SaaS software as well. Like there is a quite good percentage of people who are using it in Portuguese or like Chinese or those kind of
Wow,
languages. Yeah.
that is epic. That is epic. Is that big for you guys as well at Appwrite? Multi-language support?
Absolutely.
You did say you get contributions, but is that big and important?
Definitely. When we talk about translations, where we're trying to work with developers all across the world, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, any platform is accessible to only those who can actually understand and perceive it,
Yeah.
in their comfort. And that's exactly why translations have been important for us. And I think even just in this, while I believe I would say within this Hacktoberfest, we've had I guess 56, I mean more than 50 definitely. I've probably lost count at this point. But we've had a huge number of translations made for a lot of local vernaculars as well, like uh, I think beyond our major languages. I think I
Mhm.
remember looking at some of the contributions this time around. We've had translations, at least for Indian languages, like we've had stuff for Sindhi, Malayalam,
Nice.
Bengali, um, Tamil. I think Oriya is something I saw on the list as well.
Oh, I'm
uh,
so proud then.
I think so. I hope I'm right on that front. I'm totally not sure, to be honest. But we've had a lovely number of contributions this time around on the front of translations, and it's all a shout out to the community, because the ones during Hacktoberfest, at least as far as translations goes, have all been community contributed. And I feel that when we talk about contributions on this front, like whether it's for our platform, whether it's for Chatwoot, I think it really does go to show the power of the open source space as well. Because I think the fact that people are able to see these platforms, they can understand our journeys, our
Mhm.
plans, they're able to put their little part in there as well, is why we get to see all of these lovely contributions. So that's a huge shout out to the entire community for that.
Yeah, and contributions like these, you don't even need to be an engineer to contribute.
Yeah.
That's what makes this so inclusive. Like, I'm not an engineer, and uh, but the fact is that I can still contribute to other projects, and that's something that I personally like convinced a bunch of my friends who are not engineers to go contribute something, right? Like, uh, uh, translations are great, or write a tutorial. Those are things that you can absolutely do just with like very basic technical knowledge. So and you get to learn about Git, which is such a mysterious thing till you actually deal with it, and then you realize how wonderful and logical it is to use Git. So, even at Appsmith, we've seen a lot of tutorial contributions, which have been some of my favorite, because often we are told that Appsmith is a bit difficult to understand. I don't know what it does. So we're super thankful to people who go out of their way to simplify it and make it more accessible to somebody who's never used Appsmith before. So those have definitely been some of my favorite contributions. So we have another, I guess, like 2 more days to go for Hacktoberfest. Maybe we could take this time to talk a little bit about. I know Appwrite, you guys are giving away some swag and some things. And are you continuing that after Hacktoberfest? How should people be contributing after October is over?
So, as far as swags go, we did have some Hacktoberfest exclusives. Some of that had been there specifically, especially for this month, and all the contributors, which weren't limited, of course, to code contributions, of course. And so, just on that point, there's still a couple of days to go, so folks
Yeah,
don't have to
yeah.
stop here.
Including the
We've got
weekend
some.
where you do have time.
Yeah, there's special stickers. We've got an exclusive Hacktoberfest mug. There's a really cool Hacktoberfest exclusive T-shirt that we have. So there's there's still time for those. But that being said, the these projects, these products, they don't stop at Hacktoberfest, and there's definitely going to be something interesting post Hacktoberfest as well. We do have plans for a few different groups beyond code contributors, of course, like technical writers. So there's going to be some interesting opportunities and ways to interact and collaborate with our team and the community on that front coming up very soon.
I'm gonna keep an eye out for that then. So that's. What about you, Pranav? Are you giving away anything for Hacktoberfest?
Yeah, I mean, like for us, we didn't do anything specific in terms of like Hacktoberfest. So only thing what we try to do was like make things easier for people to get started. That's the exercise we do every year when we start. So I think like as a maintainer, it's my responsibility for making that accessible for everyone who wants to contribute, who have at least like that interest to contribute. So that's something which we do every year, and we did that for this year as well. Yeah, in terms of swags, we generally like have some events where we give out swags, and we don't have anything specific for Hacktoberfest, but like there are some events which is coming up in future which
Okay,
we've
nice. Like,
announced.
do you know what those events are, or is that still under wraps?
Yeah, I mean, like some of them are like kind of community events, which would be like coming up in next month or a
Nice.
month after that. But yeah.
That's great. For Appsmith, talking about us, so we are giving away like a T-shirt, a water bottle, and for people who contribute a lot more, a hoodie as well. So that's something we are doing in Hacktoberfest. I think we need to continue some of this at least after Hacktoberfest. We haven't decided that yet, but yeah, folks, you still have like 3 days to contribute to Appsmith as well and get that out. So we're nearly at the end of the talk here. I have one last question for Aditya, you and for Pranav, you. Uh, what's a non-Appwrite open source project that you love? Something that you would love to plug here? Maybe something that's a little less known or something that you think doesn't get enough love. Maybe we could just do a shout out for those other projects.
Sure. I think even when we started our Hacktoberfest sessions and activities, among our kickoffs were project showcases we had. One project that I got to interact with, and one that actually quite a few of our team members absolutely adore, is LazyGit. So LazyGit is this really cool little tool that it essentially gives you a terminal UI for your Git command. So it allows you to visualize your Git logs, your history, all of that. It lets you see what you're doing, and it's actually a pretty powerful tool, which is really convenient because it's light. It's something for your terminal, so you can actually use it on even the lightest devices like a Raspberry Pi. So I can probably showcase their GitHub ones. Probably I'll just bring my screen up. I guess that'd be nice. But yeah, so this project here by Jesse, we had the fortune of bringing Jesse on for our stream to just interact with them, understand what they're trying to achieve. But it's definitely a really cool project. And I mean, even as you look at this, I think that it shows how powerful this tool can be, right? And it's all in your terminal.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
This is super cool. Have you seen Fig? This other terminal autocomplete called Fig, Fig.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something just around terminal projects. I think that's also open source. That's something I first found out from one of our engineers. That's again like taking terminal to the next level.
Ah, interesting.
Pranav, what about you? What's your favorite open source project that's lesser known?
Yeah, there are a couple of projects which you already know, like maybe like Post Hoc, Superbase, or
Yeah.
those kind of projects are there which already like a lot of people know. But I'd like to point out one particular project which I really like. So it's called Caprover. Let me share my screen.
Cap Rover, is
Yep.
that the one? Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one too.
So let me see if this comes here. So this is like Heroku, but you can self-host it and then manage all your apps right inside a UI. They support Docker. It's kind of like it makes it easier for you to host a particular application. You don't have to go to your server, do some commands, and then you don't have to do any of that. This just makes your life so much easier. I mean, like, they have a good community, and they have, like, a set of, like, apps which you can directly click and install. And I think, like, it hasn't, I'm not really sure, but I think, like, some, it has, there was not much awareness about this project, which I think it's really cool
Yeah.
one, and people should actually, like, try to host it themselves. But yeah.
Yeah, I think anything that's inspired from Heroku is going to be amazing, because that was the first
Yeah.
time I ever used like a cloud hosting service was Heroku. So that's just that experience. I don't think anything has managed to come close till recently. We have a question here from Yash. What is Flick? Uh,
I think it's probably
oh,
a
I
call
think
out
that
of
was
Fig.
Fig. Oh yeah, let me bring up Fig. Let me bring that up. Yes, I found this. So Fig is basically an autocomplete uh, for your terminal, and let's find that. Oh yeah, I found this now. So this is Fig with Fig autocomplete, and yeah, so here it just adds like a rich autocomplete in your terminal, and just makes it a lot more productive. And some of our engineers just love this. So this I thought was really cool. It's really well designed, very well thought through, very well designed, and that's one of the things that I just loved about it. Simple idea, but very well executed. So you should check this out. This is definitely one of my most favorite, and it's been actually growing really well as well. So with that, I think we come to the end of our talk. Thank you so much, Pranav and Aditya, for joining us and talking about your open source projects and your work. This was really fun and exciting, and wish you all the best. And I'm hoping we can, work together. I know Appwrite and Appsmith, we are trying to do some tutorials together, so that I'm really excited about. And I really need to use Chatwoot inside Appsmith so that we can provide live support for our users. That's on our
Sure.
to-do list. So that's going to
Sure.
happen. Maybe that's something we could actually do live, which is include like Chatwoot inside Appsmith, do that live and just show it to people how easy it is.
Yeah, definitely. I'm
So
definitely
that's a
happy
to-do
to help you.
for both of
Yeah.
us. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right then. So thank you everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day, great evening, great night, wherever you are. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.